Thank you. It gives me great pleasure to present our community board reports and draw your attention to Part A on page 203 and 204.
And so, Mike, for Part A on page 203 and 204, you want to have moved the entire motion?
Absolutely.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to say on that issue? Not,
No, I think it's all there.
Okay,
All we're
thank you,
asking
Ray.
for is support.
And the board was unanimous on this, wasn't it?
We were.
Yeah, Jimmy, would you like to move that?
Yeah, no. I would like to ask questions first. Two questions. Last time the committee meeting on 2nd of February, particular committee board recommend when the staff open this redacted concept design document to the public, then committee board and the staff to try to collect the feedback from the community or individuals. I just want to ask, up to now, whether community board, you or some other board member have received those feedback or not yet?
I haven't received any additional feedback yet, but the process will allow for us to receive more feedback, and hopefully this will go to the shed committee, which will work with the community board before any final resolutions on the design and construction are made. So there will be opportunities, Councillor Chen, to receive feedback through this process.
This is concept design only at this
Yes.
stage.
Secondly, is based on community board recommendation, this three the bullet point, but during the deputation period, the one is the chair of Dean's F Precinct Society, the other secretary of the Central Riccarton Resident Association. They particularly mention, although the Riccarton volunteer library, they cannot afford to provide the services, volunteer service in the Central Riccarton area. However, these the two, the committee leader particularly mentioned, before the community board or the council have this kind of decision made, need to consult with the community. I'm not sure whether community board or council have consulted with them, whether this library service will be continued in that area. Due to their particular concern, that area is a high density population area. That's the question. I just want to, whether have you consulted with community?
Thank you, Jimmy. That was done. The consultation was done, and the statistics, if you go to page 231 of the report, attachment B, out of the 141 people who made submissions and commented, 17 only commented on libraries, and that was more to do with the volunteer library who, at the meeting on the 2nd of February, we received information that the Riccarton Volunteer Library was not going to continue in the new facility.
And that was their choice.
They are not mentioned.
Jimmy,
But I just want to clarify. Yeah, this question, your sub-question.
Last question.
Yeah, just want to clarify because their particular concern is a library service rather than the volunteer library service. Need to consult with them.
There wasn't any feedback that's identified specifically in the very, very good consultation process that has taken place up until now for a full-time city council library in the Riccarton area at this stage, Councillor Chen.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. No, that's 3 questions now. Have you got any more questions? Because there's not an issue.
Because I just want to move, just one paragraph on the motion, in the motion. I send it to the staff already.
Just read it to me and I'll tell you whether it's...
Okay, yes. That the staff consult with the community regarding whether the library service will be continued in the Central Riccarton area after the closure of the volunteer library. This is in response to the community deputation.
Jimmy, There's a volunteer library service. They are not run by the City Council. So if the volunteer library service choose to stay or go, that is completely their call. There is no plan in the budget now or next year or the year after for a library service funded by the council in central Riccarton, probably because there's one in Upper Riccarton, Fendleton, Central City, and a new one planned for Hornby. So I think this is completely outside of the remit of this proposal. This proposal is for a community centre, and the volunteer library have themselves decided that they don't want to go into this new community centre. So,
But
Jimmy,
I mean
don't
this
think-
one just
no,
in response to the community deputation in the community
it may
board.
look innocuous.
It's not has to be. I just want to, response to the community. They have a deputation.
Can I just get from Ian, is this in any way, the staff consult on with the community regarding if the library service will be, which library service? The volunteer library service?
They just mentioned the
No,
library
just
service.
be
They didn't
clear,
mention that
Jimmy,
yet.
is it the volunteer library service?
They didn't identify clearly.
So
Maybe
what
the
are
same
you
scale,
saying?
maybe the
Jimmy,
council
what are you
community.
saying?
Yes.
What are you saying? The staff consult with the community regarding if the library service, do you mean the volunteer library service?
I don't think so. It's the volunteer library. Maybe
Okay.
small scale, same size with the current the volunteer library size. Because while if a closure
Jimmy.
of the volunteer library, 6,000 volume, the books where to go?
Okay,
If they donate to council,
so Jimmy,
where is the
the
place?
volunteer library service has been operating in Riccarton since 1928. It's completely their choice if they choose to continue. If they choose to continue, then I'm sure that they would have come along to the community board, and you were there, to say, we want to continue.
Correct.
It's their call that they do not want to. There is no way that the City Council, as a City Council, would provide a one-room library service, ever. That's not what our libraries are. They're places of community gathering, data, computers, all sorts of things. You cannot do that in one room. So can I just suggest that your motion, your proposed amendment is out of order, but I just want to check that with Ian. Right, okay. So I'm not going to accept your 4, and your amendment in relation to 1, 2 and 3 is actually the
Exactly the
motion.
same as
It's
community
actually the
board.
motion.
Only to
which
vote,
is,
yes.
was unanimous at the Riccarton
Yes, it
Wickham
was.
Community Board. Thank you.
No, that answers my point.
Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah, if I could just make a suggestion. I mean, the whole nature of volunteer library is that it requires volunteers in order for it to run. If the community board had a mind to try to keep the Riccarton Volunteer Library going by working with the community to find more volunteers to essentially take that over, or in fact, if the Riccarton Community Association had a mind to try and find or provide volunteers to keep that volunteer library going, I could see that being the way in which that would be able to continue. But if we were going to open a conversation about providing a library service in the true sense, in the council library sense for Riccarton, the right place for that conversation would be as part of the annual plan.
Absolutely.
Because it would need to be scoped, it would need to be budgeted, and it would need to be considered alongside everything else we're planning to do in the library space. So I'm keen to see the voluntary library continue if there's a desire in the community for that to happen, but it does require community volunteers to step up to do that.
And,
And I just wanted to make that point.
And they can do that at any stage.
And the concept design, the original concept design did allow for space for the volunteer library should they wish to move there. They have since decided that they don't wish to move there at this point in time, but that opportunity was and still is available, that there would be space in that area for, not solely for the whole time for the volunteer library, but when they could move their bookshelves away into another room and then use that space for other community uses at other times when the volunteer library wasn't open. So that has already been considered with this original concept design before we made the amendments.
Thank you.
to it.
So, Mike, this is the recommendation from the community board. It was a unanimous decision recommended. Jimmy, do you want to move it?
I don't want to move.
Okay, I'll
but
move
I'm-
it, and Ralph will second it. Yep, Yanni?
Yeah, I just wanted, if we could, I mean, the point that Andrew made before, or Councillor Turner made, I agree with that. the provision of library service is really a matter for the activity management plan through the long-term plan or through the annual plan process. So just, I think maybe possibly a solution is just to have a note that any submitter that's concerned about the loss of library services, the appropriate process for them to make submissions is into that process.
Into the annual plan.
Into the annual plan.
Since it was mentioned by one submitter, I'm sure that Mike could pass that on to them.
Okay.
Yes,
And then the other thing, I just wanted to just check. I'm still just trying to understand the rationale for the Robbie site being with it. So you've got an existing but successful business that's working well, and we're going to knock that over, build a new facility, and we're going to sell off the land where the current facility is. Why wouldn't you do it the other way around? Why wouldn't you sell off the place where the business is, so that if possibly that business wanted to...
For example, Robbie's Bar.
Yeah, and build the community centre on where the current community centre is, so you actually get a win-win rather than getting rid of a local business.
The local business's lease is, I think, expired. So, and it has
And the
been...
council's made that decision.
Yes.
The council's made this decision. What we're now discussing is the concept design, basically where it goes, and basically the size and those sorts of things. You'll notice also that the community centre asked could be built so that a second story could go on if there was a lot of need. This is not the detailed design drawings. This is a concept design. Finally, a new community centre in Riccarton, which I actually think is a cause of celebration. And you'll see extensive consultation was done with the community, even standing in Riccarton Mall asking people what they wanted. And it's an interesting community, very high rental population around there, very high young population around there. And a lot of what they wanted was things like computer gaming, which are quite different than perhaps we might have
It's
thought.
quite hard to read the consultation in that
Well,
document.
it's incredibly
Very blurry.
extensive. Yeah, sorry about that.
Okay, but that decision around the land has already been made?
Yes, as I understand it, some time ago, yeah. So can I
Can I
put
just
this?
add that post-earthquake, there was a lot of consultation on whether the existing community centre should be or could be rebuilt, and then what people would like in a new community centre, should one be built, and location. So that took place with a special consultative process post-earthquake, and then we've moved on from there with the preferred location, which is the Robbie site, and we're just taking it from there.
Okay, so I'm moving and Raf was seconding these recommendations. I'll put those in
So
favour.
I would like to debate.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm very, very disappointed for the process of decision made regarding to the concept design document, because in the early stage, in the beginning, the community board and the community request the staff consider based on all the nature, the experience, easy to separate the concept design document in a public realm, and also the commercial sensitive document in the PX realm. However, the staff didn't listen to the community and the community board, probably at least 2 times.
Actually,
and also,
just-
because
just-
I'm debate, please.
But
Yeah.
you're
And
making
also
accusations that are not correct.
And also, based on the email, my understanding, management level, at the end of November last year, sent to the secretary of Central Riccarton Resident Association, and also CC to community board and local council, 2 bullet points I would like to emphasize. Particular mention, moving forward, part of decision-making process will be involved in the community board, particularly at the concept design stage. And this will allow for further input, however, didn't make the practice. Second is it means the secretary of resident association, specific point will be carried into the concept design. But you are aware, this the document is in the PS, how the community, they are aware this the document, the contents. And also, then on the 2nd of February, the community board meeting, all the board members with the chairperson here asked clearly, we listen to the chair of Dean's F, Prison Association, the other secretary of the Central Riccarton Resident Association, on behalf of their community association, particular highlight, after the closure of the Riccarton, the volunteer library, whether in this area need have a kind of the library service, need to consult with the community first, rather than just make a decision directly. So I add on the bullet point here, actually is a proper response to the community. Why cannot put in here? This is my particular concern. Maybe not has to be, to continue the library service in the central Riccarton area. However, we need to take into account, we need to hear the voices from the community. That's all the attitude. So, and also if you review the page 206, you can see actually the service center, in the half a year, they have 6,839 transactions. If we compare with some other the service center, maybe you can see the figure, Findleton, Papalu, even more than those the service center. So there's high demand in that area. So I'm disappointed, this one, but I still accept the community board recommendation. Disappointed because my recommendation, one paragraph, not put in there. Yes.
Okay, just so we're clear, the Riccarton Community Board is suggesting that the service centre remain in the Riccarton commercial area, having looked at those figures at its last meeting.
Correct.
At the last meeting, the stuff that was in PX was made public, and those groups who wanted to address the Riccarton Community Board addressed the Riccarton Community Board. As a result, this is all coming in public with some slightly different slightly different recommendations than what might have been there before.
Correct.
Also, the volunteer library fronted up to the community board and spoke to the community board and said they did not want to continue past the change. Their call entirely. So I think actually the exciting thing is that we now have a concept design for a new Riccarton Community Centre. The community centre that's been there has been closed for, 5 years, Mark?
Yes, it is.
It's got a tiny bit at the front, which is usable, and the entire back of it is completely unusable and at about 15% or something, 15% of building code, not usable. This is a modern, usable, very flexible, 549 square metres from memory, space that is there for the community of Riccarton, which will be staffed and which will have potentially a service centre in it, depending on where is the best place for the service centre. So I think actually a brilliant outcome, but what I'd like to do now is put the motion, which I've moved and Raph has seconded, put that, those in favour please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, carried. Thank you. And the next one is the 24 and 25. Anything you want to add to those, Mike? They're just minutes.
Just minutes.
Yep.
Everything's there, unless there's any questions.
Okay.
I'm happy to move these two.
You're happy to move those? Okay, Jimmy moves. Andrew seconds. Put those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, carried. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks very much indeed, Mike.
And the PX ones will be taken in PX later in the meeting, but they're just as a matter of course
They've all
anyway. So.
been dealt with anyway.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Okay,